Ladies and gentlemen, so I go by the name of Jallo Ibrahim. I come from Futa in the Modern region. So today I'm going to give you a small brief introduction about Nelson Mandela's life, especially leaning on the fact that he was in jail for at least 27 years. So first of all, please let me introduce him. Mandela was born on the 18th of July 1980 from Kenifani to Maro from Kosi Papa Niswaka Mandela, a very difficult name to pronounce. So he was born in Brazil, which is a tiny precinct on the banks of the Mbaji River in the district of Mtada, the capital of Transkei. This is part of the South African landscape. So in the Transkei region, the Transkei region was 800 miles from Cape Town in South Africa and 550 miles from Johannesburg. I think you are aware of these towns in South Africa. We did African civilization. So the region in which he was born was a beautiful country, a very beautiful country, with rolling hills, fertile valleys, thousands of rivers and streams, which keep the landscape green even in winter. You know, most of the time in winter and the landscape tends to be, yellow. So in this landscape, they keep it, green. So the Transkei region was one of the largest territorial divisions within South Africa, which covers a superficie, but a width which is comparable to the one of Switzerland. You know Switzerland. So it is a home of the Tembo people, who are part of the Xhosa nation, in which Nelson Mandela was born. Was from? A community in which he was born. So, as I said, Nelson Mandela was born in 1918. And you all know that 1918 was the end of the First World War. It marked the end of the First World War. And it marked also an outbreak of an influenza epidemic. You know influenza? Influenza is a kind of disease. An influenza epidemic that killed thousands of people across the globe. So, I told you right now about Roshlashla. Roshlashla was his name given to him by his father. So, it has a specific meaning in this culture. Roshlashla means literally pulling the branch of a tree. But its colloquial meaning, or its familiar meaning, more accurately, would be a troublemaker. So, Nelson Mandela went to school in 1925 at the age of 7. And at school, he was baptized in another name. His teacher, Miss Ninga, gave him the name Nelson in accordance with a custom which consisted in giving all the school children Christian name, because at the time South Africa was governed by white men. And as you know, white men are so racist, they were unable or unwilling to utter or pronounce the African name. So you were supposed to be baptized in another name, and in the particular occasion he was baptized as Nelson. This is how the name Nelson came. So in 1930 his father died when he was 12 years old, and he became a word. You know what? A young boy who will be raised in another family. He became a word of the Tembo regent, whose name was Jingintaba Del Diego. You know, they are very difficult names to pronounce, in which he will hear about the stories of his ancestral values. So in 1934, he was circumcised at the age of 16. And as you know, as a man in Africa, if you are not circumcised, you are not regarded as a man. So at the circumcision, he made a passage from adulthood to manhood. So in 1941, he and his cousin, the son of his tutor or his guardian, they fled from where they were to Johannesburg, because the father began to arrange their marriages, and they didn't want to marry at that time. So they fled from this place to Johannesburg, and his university studies in Johannesburg were cut short because he joined the student protests. So at that university, he graduated in 1943, but later on, at the end of his imprisonment, he will another time graduate in 1989, during the last 14 months of his imprisonment. I will come back on it. So in 1944, he married his first wife, Evelyn Mas, who was a social but a young nurse, and they had 2 sons and 2 daughters. The 2 sons, the first was named after himself, Madiba, and the second was named after Magato. Magato died in 2005 from AIDS, SIDA. So they had 2 daughters. 2 of them were named after Makasui. Why? Because the first the first daughter died, and the second was named after the first to pay homage to the first. And the same year, in 1944, I've got problems with the years, he entered or he joined the ANC, the African National Congress, in order to fight against the racial discrimination which was going on in South Africa. So, in 1948, the apartheid regime was put in place by the Afrikaners. In 1952, he, Nelson Mandela, and 19 other people, they were convicted for just taking part in a civil disobedience campaign, and they were sentenced to 9 months of imprisonment with hard labor. So, this was his first arrest. And secondly, in 1955, he was arrested once again. Why? Because in 1952, he studied law with his friend Oliver Tambo. I don't know if you heard about Oliver Tambo. So, this 1955 arrest led to the 1956 treason trial. I don't know if you heard about it. We did it in our African civilization. So, he was among the last group of the 28 of his co-prisoners who had been released from jail in 1961. And before being released, he had the opportunity to flee between his house and the prison. It was not a death penalty. They were not strictly, jailed. They had some opportunities to go out. So at that time, in 1958, because before he released in 1961, he divorced Evelyn Mars and he married Winnie Mandela, Mandela, who has recently died. Yeah. So they had two daughters. The first was Zenani and the second was Zinzi. I will talk about Zinzi after. So, after being released from the treason trial, Nelson Mandela went underground. To go underground, to leave something, or to organize something illegally. Yeah. He went underground. He planned a general strike or national strike for 3 days, for 29th, the 30th and the 31st of May, 1961. And he did his best to establish and at the same time take the lead of his military branch, which is called Ubuntu, which is in Kosa, but it has a specific meaning in English, which can be translated as the spear of a nation. You know a spear? The spear is like what we call a lance. So, why did he do so? Because he was aware of the fact that the ANC, his non-violent fight against the apartheid regime, did not give tangible or satisfactory results, and then the ANC and the Pan-Africanist Congress were banned. That is the reason why he decided to establish the military branch. But white people wondered why Nelson Mandela, as a non-violent man who advocates non-violent fight against apartheid, how can he establish or put in place a military branch? He answered them by a wonderful quote in their mother tongue by saying, Sabatana ase okwe kajatla. It is in their language. It can be translated in English to mean the attacks of a wild beast cannot be averted only with bare hands. You cannot face somebody, your enemy, who is armed and you are bare hands. He will kill you easily. So, in 1962, in January, he left South Africa secretly, because the ANC was banned, and traveled around Africa in order to get a military support for his armed struggle against apartheid. Now he is ready to fight against apartheid. And in that trip, he went to England. And when he traveled and he was, working in the streets of London, he saw the status of Jan Smith, not Jan Smith, but Jan Smoot. Jan Smoot was the former Prime Minister of South African Prime Minister during the Second World War. But he was so angry, so indignant by saying that he was a white man who represented his country. And from that trip, he got a military support, military training from Morocco and Ethiopia. So, for the third time, he was arrested once again in 1962 in a police roadblock, and he was charged or accused of leaving the country illegally and inciting workers, I told you right now, to go on a strike for 3 days. So he was put in the Pretoria local prison, where he began serving in this prison. So when when he was jailed in 1964, the same year, he joined 10 others on trial in what became now as the Rivonia trial. Now, not the treason trial, but the Rivonia trial. The Rivonia trial, and he joined the 3 others for sabotage. And Nelson Mandela did explain the use of sabotage. He told them that we use sabotage because first it did not involve loss of lives. We did not want to start a broad fight between black and white. Broad fight is a broad struggle in which we can kill people. And third, it offers the best hope for reconciliation between races afterwards in the future. So the ANC, I mean the MK, the ANC military branch was abbreviated as MK. So the ANC's goal was, to inflict the most possible damage to the government without harming anyone individually or directly. So Nelson Mandela and the ANC's goal was to unify the future of the South African community in harmony. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And in 1964, he and 7 others, he and Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Ahmed Kataba, and so on and so forth, they were, they were accused, and the next day they were sentenced to life imprisonment from 1964, and now for 27 years of imprisonment. His 27 years of imprisonment began in 1964. He will be released in 1990. If you count from 1964 to 1990, it is 27 years. So in 1968, while he was in prison, his mother, not Evelyn, but Mr. Kenny died from dire poverty, in very extreme poverty, very extreme conditions.
His mother?
Yes, his mother. By the time he was in prison, he was in jail. And the following year, 1969, his eldest son, Tembi, died from an accident in a car. He was not allowed to attend the funeral. Look at the patterns. As if these white people did not have a birth feeling. How can a human being can do so? Your mother died, you are allowed to attend her funeral. Your eldest son, Tembi, his eldest son, on whom he counted so much, died, breathed his last. He wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. We should be very careful towards white people. They are so dangerous. I'm sorry to say so. So, in 1982, he was transferred, he and 3 others, they were transferred to the Portsmouth prison. And another of their co-prisoner joined them 7 months later. So it was in 1982. In 1985, President Botha, the former president of South Africa, who came before President de Klerk, gave Nelson Mandela a conditional release, as I told you right now. Yeah. So the conditional release was that he should give up, or he should abandon his, violence instrument as a political fight. He should avoid, or he should reject violence as a political instrument to fight against apartheid.
Yeah. But he is outside.
Yes.
Pacifically.
Yes.
Without doing any activity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you understand. So he rejected the offer. But at the time he was in jail, how could you reject the offer? He was given 1 week whether to decide whether he will accept or reject the offer. So he wrote the statement in which he rejected his offer, and the statement was supposed to be read by his daughter, as I told you right now, Zinzi. Zinzi was a very dynamic speaker, like the Mazu was. And in this statement, Nelson Mandela said, reported by his daughter Zinzi, he said that prisoners cannot enter in contracts. Only free men can negotiate. I cannot and will not give any undertaking at a time when I and you, the people, are not free. My freedom and yours cannot be separated. I will return. So in 1986, he started negotiations about, not negotiation, but he started talks with the South African government about his ultimate meeting with the ANC. So this was in 1996. But he spent over 3 months in a hospital at Victor Verster prison, from where he was released on February the 11th, 1990. I told you about hospital. He spent 3 months in hospital because he suffered from tuberculosis. Because when they were in Robben Island, it was so cold, they didn't have, very nice or very good clothes, very good coats. It was very cold. The wind was very cold. Yeah. They, got tuberculosis. This pulmonary disease attack somebody, which is very, very dangerous. So this was in 1990, the year he was released from jail.
Definitely released.
Yes, he was definitely released, and he was released at the age of 72 years old. When he was released, he was 72 years old, and in 1991 he did his best to abolish, or to put an end to the ANC, not the ANC, but the apartheid regime, after having been working in South Africa for more than 40 years. This is, this violent political system, after having been working in South Africa for more than 40 years. It had been running in South Africa. At least 40 years, they lived in very difficult conditions in South Africa. So in 1994, he voted for his first time at the age of 76. It was in April, and in May the 10th, he was inaugurated as the first democratically elected president of South Africa. But when he was given a speech, to deliver a speech to his audience, he said that if I had to restart, I would do the same thing. I would fight against apartheid for the purpose of getting myself and my people out of this political ditch, for the purpose of making myself free. He would do the same thing. Maybe they will kill him or they will put him in jail, but he will do the same thing. So this was in 1994. Yes, 1994.
Yeah.
And in 1996, he divorced Winnie Mandela, but recently died. Divorced Winnie Mandela for political reasons and because of the radicalization of Winnie on a political level. So in 1998, he married another wife because he had been single for 2 years, from 1996 to 1998. And in 1998, in his 18th anniversary, not 18th but 80th, 80th anniversary, he married another one, Graça Machel. She was a former first lady of Mozambique because she was a former, she's a former wife of Samora Machel, who was a former president of Mozambique, a neighboring country to South Africa. So this was in 1998, and Nelson Mandela finally stepped down from power after only one term in 1999, 5 years in term. 5 years in term, because in South Africa, their constitution allows you just to stay in power, like the United States, just for 5 years in term. He stepped down freely, without election, without something. He stepped down, as I said, a rendu le pouvoir to Thabo Mbeki, who was, the following president of Nelson Mandela. So, Nelson Mandela was special.
Yeah.
He was special, despite terrible attacks. Nelson Mandela never answered. Yes, never answered racism by racism. His life had been an inspiration to so many people who lived under depression and deprivation, like me. So he finally breathed his last or died in December the 5th, 2013, after having long suffering from tuberculosis. So thank you so much. I am Jam, and do a story about Nelson Mandela.